and break the chains of hate that held all of creation and caused all of the pain. The victory is won by the only begotten Son, who gave his life for love. For love.
Welcome to another episode of Dardasha. It's a very special episode that we have today. You would have noticed that we've been speaking about the Coptic school recently. And today we're delighted to have everybody in the episode still associated with the Coptic school. And I'll just do a very quick introduction, then ask them to tell you a little bit about themselves. So we have Abuna Elijah. Blessing to have you, Abuna.
Nice to be here, Abuna. Thank you.
And Abuna went to the Coptic school himself and currently has his beloved child in the Coptic school, or children.
Yep,
Child.
Yeah.
And we have Alethia Georgie, who is a school captain currently at the Coptic school in Wattle Grove, St. Mark's. And we also have Mary Nicola as well, who also attended the Coptic school as a student, but is a teacher there now. So might just start off with Abuna Elijah. Abuna, the people know you because you're Abuna, but if you could give them maybe just a brief history of your time in the Coptic school, how long you went there, and ultimately, if I could ask all of you as well, just to tell everybody at home, if you're happy that your parents made the decision to send you to the Coptic school, because you had probably no say when you went the first time, but were you happy with their decision, and would you change anything if you could go back?
So I started at the Coptic school at St. Mark's when it opened. I was in year 3 when they were renting in Lidcombe, and I pretty much stayed there until I was in year 12 and graduated. I guess by the end of my schooling I was very happy that my parents did that. But now as a parent, I actually asked my dad recently, like, what were you thinking, like chucking me into this school where they were making it up as they were going along, like didn't you want to just wait a year or two, just see what happened, see? And then he just said, no, like, when the church does something, we support it. So, which was quite a remarkable, straightforward answer. So to answer your question, Abuna, yes, I was happy, but I'm not sure I would have had the courage that my dad did.
Yes, I love that. And I also love the decisiveness of your father. He just loves the church, knows which direction he wants the family to go in, and he walks that way, of course, with your mum, side by side. So that's a treasure. Alethia, if you could tell people like what your current role is at the school, for example, at the moment, and how long you've been at the school.
So I came to the school first in year 5 when we came to Australia, and since then I've seen the school transform in such a beautiful way to how it is today. And just today in my role, it's not anything too much, but we just we try to advocate for the grade to have like more unity together in doing more things. And we're blessed to have both Abuna Anthony and Abuna Elijah on one of the initiatives we started, which was a spiritual podcast called Beyond the Walls. And again, to answer your question, Abuna, I think I'm ecstatic at the Coptic school. It's the best decision we've ever had the joy to experience.
You can see the joy in your face, Alethia. It's beautiful. And Mary, if you could please let the people at home know just a little bit about yourself, because you've gone to the Coptic school more than any of us here. Yeah.
So I was part of the very beginning when it started. So I was in year 5 when it opened up in Lidcombe. I remember clearly I went to public schools before that, and we actually moved into Wattle Grove before the school came across. And I was in year 4 at the time, and I went home and I said to Dad, hey Dad, can I go to the school disco? And in that instant, he enrolled me in the Coptic school, even though it was so far away in Lidcombe. At the time, I was super cranky because all I can remember and obsess over was the horrendous uniform, and it was down to there and whatever. But looking back now, I am so grateful. I'm so grateful like Father Elijah said, the bravery and the courage to throw my sister and I, and eventually my brother in, even though it was a burden in terms of distance, in terms of finances, you know, I'm so grateful. It has shaped who I am today as a human, as a Coptic Christian, and now as a teacher. So now I'm a teacher, and I've taught at St. Mark's and St. Mary's, and back and forth. And now I have the blessing of have all my 3 kids in the Coptic schools at St. Mark's, and I would not have it any other way.
Yeah, you know, actually, Mary, might start off with a question for you. So, something that has been said over and over again is this concept that now in Australia we have schools that are called Christian schools by name, but then you'll hear complaints about what they're actually teaching in those schools. They're teaching popular culture, they're teaching things against the Bible. So, opening question is, you've obviously been a student there, now you're a teacher there. How do you think the Coptic school has done in terms of upholding the commands of Christ, the teachings of the Bible, to the children?
Look, I think we're blessed in Australia in that in the independent sector, we're blessed to be able to ensure that the strategic vision and the ethos of the college, and it's essentially its identity, is taught through the curriculum and is essentially the foundation of why we exist. And we've never wavered from that. My time at St. Mark's, my time at St. Mary's, it is the foundation of who we are. And an exemplification of that is the fact that COS, as a subject, Coptic Orthodox Studies, as our faith subject, is compulsory kindergarten through to year 12. And that's taught all the way through. And God bless Father Antonius, the previous director of St. Mark's. He created the curriculums and the textbooks for this subject to make it a valid NESA endorsed subject. And it's compulsory. No matter who you are as a student, everybody has to do COS. And it's respected by the students as just like English and maths and science. And it will appear on your HSC certificate at the end of year 12. And nothing's whitewashed. Like nothing is... the Orthodox way is present through and through. And one example is COS. The other example is the fact that the feast days are all celebrated. Okay, so at St. Mark's, I know, Alethia, you guys will celebrate all the 4 houses. So they've got 4 houses. Yeah. At the moment at St. Mary's, we have 3 houses. And thank God, actually, for the growth next year, we'll have the 4th house. So St. Mark's feast, St. Mary's feast, St. Mina's feast, St. Damiana's feast are all celebrated. Yeah. Pastoral care is not a social fabrication that we just discuss things like bullying and whatever. No, everything has an Orthodox Christian center around it, all the way even into science. So yes, we'll teach the science curriculum, and yes, the teacher will teach, you know, the Big Bang Theory. But at the end of that, we'll say, however, as a Orthodox college, our belief is in creation, that God created the world. So we will teach curriculum, but we will not whitewash the Orthodox Coptic foundation of what is Coptic school. Yeah. So we won't jump onto the fads that are being presented all the time, you know, for the sake of enrollments or funding or any of that. Yeah. No, we are Coptic Orthodox Studies. We are Coptic Orthodox colleges, and that's how we identify. And we will remain straight, just like the Coptic churches. Yeah,
yeah. It's a beautiful thing, really, to hear about. And I think for everyone who goes to the school now, you realize, you know what, it's not just Coptic people there. Now there's a lot of people from different backgrounds who go. Even though they know what we stand for as a school, they're attracted to that. And it's a real witness to the world, I think, and that being strong and proud of your faith is not uncool. In fact, it's attractive. Yeah, so it's a treasure. Buna, I might jump to a question for you. So I think there's a lot of people who understand the benefit of sending their children, for example, to a Coptic school. And I think the biggest benefit is what Mary was touching on about we don't waver with who we are. We know our identity, we stick by it, and we teach it. obviously, in the back of a lot of parents' minds are two other things when it comes to choosing a school. One of those is academics, and I think you're a good person to ask about this because, like, you lived the dream, the Coptic dream, Abuna. Enta بقيت دكتور قد الدنيا, right? You became a doctor, which is what every parent wants for their child. But you're good socially, like, as in, like, I think you can go into any environment in Australia and hold a good conversation and get along with everyone. So academics and social life, from your experience at the school and your understanding of how it is now, how do you think the Coptic school is when it comes to social life and academic life?
Thanks, Abuna, for that introduction. I'm not sure I'm worthy of it, but thank you. Look, I think in terms of academics, the results of the school speak for themselves. And if I could summarize it, the Coptic schools have always punched well above their weight, in terms of resources, in terms of, being non-selective. They've always performed remarkably well over the last, 20 plus years. In terms of socially, look, I guess I can understand where people are coming from. Like, there's an idea that people are going to be unable to deal with people from different backgrounds and cultures. And to your point earlier, nowadays there's a very decent percentage, I'm not sure exactly the numbers, 10, 20%, probably more, from different backgrounds. So it's not quite accurate to say that people are not exposed to other cultures. But then the other thing is, like, why do we have to speculate when we've got 30 years of examples in front of us? This is my question. Yeah. They're not going to be able to... Well, the schools have been around for a long, long time and generations have gone through them. So instead of speculating, just go and observe the graduates from the school in many different walks of life, in many different careers. Yeah. I think if people are having trouble academically or socially, the Coptic school is not... it's not the solution but to that problem, and is not like, it's not the cause of the problem either. That's my thoughts on it, Abuna.
No, thanks for that. Alethia, so you're the only one on any of these couches who's currently a student over there now, so you're living the life as it is. I want to ask you as well about the social life, what you think of it at the moment, the academic life, and I want to add one more thing, if I can, which is extracurricular activities. So that's one other thing which I know a lot of parents are keen on. We want our children to be more involved in extracurricular things, not just study, not just church. We need them to expand. So from your experience and what you've seen, what are your thoughts about these things?
If you don't mind, Abuna, I'd like to start with extracurriculars. I think, from coming to the school, I was raised quite differently to your classic Coptic or Arab child. In England, extracurriculars was the main factor, and of course academics. And I think coming in here, we had stuff already. So we've always had debating, public speaking, spelling competitions, and things of that sort. And I think it's also about the child. Everything is available, but you have to have the initiative to kind of put yourself into every opportunity and enroll yourself into them. Nothing is forced upon you. So it kind of has to be that intrinsic motivation and not so much extrinsically from the parent as well. So that was definitely established. But I think over the years, we've grown in that department, I think, very significantly. So we have mathematics competitions, we have STEM competitions at sites with nuclear reactors and against other schools. And we actually do quite well, coming second or first in certain elements. And as well with that, we have the mission trips, which I think is probably the most beautiful thing that our school can offer. I've had the blessing to go on the first one last year to the Philippines, and then they went again this year and are planning for Egypt as well. So I think that ties all things together. You have your extracurricular, you're going for service volunteering, that builds you as a person, it builds your portfolio, it builds, everything, it harnesses everything. And it builds you socially. So it was a cross-grade event. So when I went, I was in year 11, and we went with the year 10s. And we're such a strong group together. And when we came back to school, we had a lot of reunions together. We spoke to the school about it. We spoke to the new group going out about it. We continued making some videos for the church in the Philippines, and it was just such a uniting event. And again, something different on that note, we were very blessed to have exchange students from Japan.
Yeah.
And students had the ability to host them and to learn from them and to teach them and to learn with them. And that was such a beautiful thing to experience. And again, you know, you had the different cultures mingling in the school. So it was such a good opportunity socially and, you know, definitely spiritually, because you had the opportunity to serve others and to help them kind of fit in and understand our culture and our way of life.
Yeah.
We also have a lot of sporting events. So we have, during a week, we have 1 day of sports. So for high school, that's Tuesday, and you can do competitive sport, which is called Swissa, the Southwest competition, and you compete against other schools, St. Mark's and St. Mary's. We also compete against Greek Orthodox schools and, you know, independent schools and that of the sort, and you mingle and you make friends, and, you know, we're still in contact and we see each other at each sporting event. And then you can also opt for not a competitive sport, and that options like has varied a lot. So we have rock climbing, we have bowling, we have like the gym, ice skating, pickleball, badminton. You know, like you never would have heard of some of these as a sport beforehand. So that's really beautiful to see. And again, these are cross grades, so it really gives you the opportunity to socialize with others beyond your grade, because that's not something we do usually.
Yeah.
And then we also have, of course, the athletics and swimming carnival, and you're in your houses as well. So it's really nice, you know, social and spiritual. You write kind of chants to imitate kind of your saint. And if you succeed in those, then you have the opportunity to compete against other schools, such as in competitions such as ACs for athletics or swimming. So we have everything in terms of extracurriculars. That's sport. We also do Duke of Edinburgh now. It's a camp, ski trips. There's so much. Yeah.
So Abuna and Mary, how much has that changed since your time? How much of this was available?
No, that's different. I'm pretty sure I did walking as a sport for about 20 years. I'm pretty sure.
That's why Abuna's so fit.
And Alethia's being humble. See all these badges on her blazer. Yeah. So that is the high seas debating badges that she's got, and they took out the championship last year, correct? So and this is an incredibly difficult debating competition. I used to watch Maggie, who was your coach last year, training these kids, and I watched her this year because she was training Emily and Ollie and the primary group, and I'm blown away as to the skills and the language that they're learning to debate these impromptu social, political questions from primary school age upwards. And for them to take out the championship last year against schools who get external coaching. So you're talking about Edinburgh, you're talking about, what's the one they went up against?
We went up against the grammar school, and we had to travel to the Central Coast. So it was, again, a really good experience.
And they took it out. And this was all on the time of existing teachers. There's no external coaching or anything. And so the servitude from teachers is what makes the Coptic schools what they are. The Coptic school teachers love these kids. And that's why these things work. And that's the attraction. So when parents come to us and say, you know, what does the Coptic school have to offer? I'm pretty upfront with them. I say, we're not perfect, but I can promise you the teachers are going to keep your kids safe and they're going to love your kids. I promise you that. But we're not going to shelter them. I always say to them, we're not going to shelter them from the madness that's out there, but we will never normalize the madness, because we have the Coptic Orthodox way, and that's what we normalize. That's how we identify. So yes, we'll offer all of this stuff, and we'll give you the private school experience. But overarchingly, this is a Coptic Orthodox college, and the teachers will love your kids.
It's beautiful. I think like being number one in debating is amazing. It reminds me of, you know, the early church, people like Saint Justin Martyr, people like Saint Augustine, defenders of the faith. You know, now we have a 2025 generation who's able to exchange blows, you know, and be able to defend and stand up for the faith. It's encouraging to see. And actually on that, Mary, that was one of the questions that I had for you as a teacher. Do you think that teachers at the Coptic school, and of course, like, this has to be a generalized question because I can't speak for every teacher in Sydney, but do you think, generally speaking, the teachers at the Coptic school are more invested to go the second mile with students? And why would they do that?
I'm going to be bold, and I'm going to say the second and the third and the fourth and the fifth mile. I've been teaching at the Coptic schools since 2006, and I have seen teachers honestly like hold kids' hands in times of real distress. And I'm not talking about academia. Our kids hurt just as much as other kids in other schools, and they will fall in the same types of temptation like every other kid does. At the end of the day, we're teaching teenage kids. We're teaching kids of the world. But the difference will be that the advice we give them, the strategies we advise them with, the help we seek for them is shrouded in love and care. So I've seen teachers go way above and beyond in care and application and time and sacrifice because we love our kids. Yeah. That's what it is. I hear teachers all the time calling them kids. We don't call them students. And so, Coptic, non-Coptic, if you're going to work in the Coptic school, you will naturally go above and beyond. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just because these are our own, but honestly, it's not. I don't think it is that, because like Father Elijah said, the makeup of our college has changed. Like, it's not Coptic kids anymore. We have a variety of different cultures and backgrounds. And it's funny, actually. We had a new enrollment come in just a few weeks ago. So I was talking to the mum in the office, and I had a Year 12 student sitting in the office because she was about to go into her trial exams. Yeah. And the mum was saying to me, I don't know if I'm doing the right decision. I'm really nervous, this and that. I said, listen, all I can promise you is that we take really good care of these kids. Yeah. Like, we really will do everything we can to give them the time and the attention they need. And that Year 12 girl who's not Coptic said, that's really true here. So I was really taken aback by that, because we don't always get to hear it, but it was nice to know that the effort is being felt by our students. And we see all our kids the same. Coptic, not Coptic, it doesn't matter. Egyptian, not Egyptian, because we have a lot of Indian kids now, we have a lot of kids from Asian backgrounds, we have a lot of Serbians and Macedonians. Yeah. And the parents, when they come, it only takes a couple of weeks, and they say, wow, like, there's a lot of care here. Yeah. And it's not just in academia. Like, the schools have changed. We are looking after their academics, their social, their mental health, and that area has grown massively. Yeah. Their sports. St. Mark's takes out championships year on year. St. Mary's, they take our netball. We're the champions. Well, we have these. Yeah, we take it out. Rights. Yeah, that's good. And our boys, they just went to the Wanderers Cup last week, and they got to the semi-finals. So we're pushing in every direction to be a holistic school, to make sure that we have something to cater for every type of child, because we're not just serving academic kids anymore. Yeah. So we need to evolve in that light. I was just talking to my deputy today. And I was telling her, because she's not Coptic, and she was asking me, like, why are teachers so tolerant here? Okay. And I said to her, it is ingrained in us that when we come and teach in the Coptic school, we're here to serve. It's not a job. And she was taken aback by that, because she was, trying to deal with something, and she was like, why are you so tolerant? Why are your teachers so tolerant? I go, because we serve our kids here. Yeah. So it's not a job. Yeah. So.
I love the expression, our kids. Like, I don't know how many schools you go to in Sydney and they'll call them like ours. These are ours. They're our kids. Like, you can't really have a more affectionate two words after each other than our kids. It's powerful. It's powerful. Buna, I do have a question. So, big decision. Imagine husband, wife sitting down thinking, which school are we going to send our kids to? And it's not uncommon for one spouse to think differently to the other when it comes to, choosing a school for their child. So I only have easy questions for you, Abuna. So how can two people who think about this topic differently come to, a harmonious conclusion of which school to choose for their child? And how important is that decision of where they send their child to from your experience?
Look, I think it's very, very tricky. And it's the source of a lot of heartache in a lot of homes and a lot of dinner table conversations, at every social event. People tend to be talking about this, so it's hard. And there's no one size fits all, so that, as much as I personally love the Coptic school, it's not the right fit for everyone. There's so many factors, like the cohort, the personality of the child, it's not one size fits all. That's important.
Yeah.
I would maybe just suggest three principles. One is test the decision that you're making in the furnace of God's presence. So God, He's the author of peace and order. And so if a family is making a very big decision, let's try to spend a similar amount of time praying about the decision as we do talking about the decision. And really, God will furnish the path and open the doors and put peace in our hearts in one direction rather than the other. Sometimes we just talk too much and we research too much. No, more talking is not going to get you anywhere. You've already been talking for the last 10 years and you haven't got anywhere.
Yeah.
Spend a bit more time in prayer. I think another thing is, we need to unpack a little bit the preferences. So if someone says left and someone says right, we can't agree because we can't go left and right. But let's unpack it. What about the Coptic school is so important to you? It's the community, it's the care, it's the friendships, what about, the private school is appealing to you? It's the opportunity, it's the extracurricular, So as you learn to sort of unpack those things with your spouse, then one of two things will happen. Either as you hear why it's so important to them, you might find yourself willing to compromise, which is a good thing, or you might actually find that there's a way to satisfy some of those sub-criteria. Okay, we can't send the kid to both schools, but maybe, if you hypothetically send to the Coptic school and you feel that the extracurricular things are lacking, we can try to compensate for those things. If you send to the private school and you find that, you're worried about friendships, well, we can maybe choose the private school that has a strong Coptic contingent in their grade, or make extra effort to, develop their friendships by going to houses of families that I'm not familiar with, but that is a good friendship for my son or my daughter, so I'm going to invest in it. So not being so stuck on Coptic school, private school, we can't agree. Let's unpack it and be open to each other's influence and try to compromise. And then the third principle is, and this is just an opinion, Abuna, so just take it with a grain of salt. I believe that the very, very, very best thing that you can give to your children is yourself. Okay? And what I mean by that is, there are some families who I observe are putting their kids in private schools that are $30,000, $40,000 a year. And they might have 3 or 4 children. And these families are struggling to make ends meet. These families are struggling, okay? And people are working 2 or 3 jobs, they're working long hours, they're struggling physically, mentally, okay? And so I personally think that that's not the best thing that you can do for your child. If you are able to send your children to a private school that has fees of $40,000, but you are able to live a balanced life, relaxed, prayerful, going on holidays, being available for your children, not just physically, but mentally as well, then do it. But if you're stretching yourself beyond breaking point to pay for these private schools, to give your children the best opportunity, my opinion is you're doing your children a disservice. Because the best thing that you can give them is not a school, it's yourself. If you can give them the best schools money can buy, and the best of yourself, good luck to you. But it's very, very limited circumstances where that's the case.
Yeah. I think that's an incredibly important point that you touched on, Abuna, and something that I do recall is there was a very extensive research done by a man called Dr. Christian Smith, and he basically authored a book which is How to Pass Your Faith On to the Next Generation. And what he was saying in a nutshell, like after all of this research, which cost literally millions of US dollars, it costs this research, his conclusion in a nutshell, more or less, was it's not schools, it's not Sunday school, it's not your minister, it's not mission trips. What is the number one factor in terms of passing your faith on to the next generation? And this was his 3-word conclusion. It's the parents. It's the parents. Of course, all of these other things help. But I love that point, Abuna, how the greatest thing you can offer your children is yourself. Like as a parent, to try to be available for them. And definitely that makes sense. Like if it means cutting down on an extra job, not paying 30, 40,000 for a private school, but a different school, which of course, like, let's not lie about it. We're here on the couch talking about the Coptic school, all right? Then I think it's a good option. It's a great.
Every family is different, really. But like, I think people really need to take a step back and think. Like there's more than a financial cost. Sometimes there's a great personal cost and a great relational cost as well. And we have to just weigh up the cost. You might have the conversation and think, no, it's worth it. We can manage it, fine. But it will be tragic if that almost kind of happens accidentally, absent-mindedly. We just kind of drift in that direction. Like it's, yeah. But anyway, this is something which, like, even when I talk to, say, youth Abuna who are in their 20s or 30s or whatever, how many of them look back at their childhood and say, I wish my parents worked more. I wish my parents got me nicer clothes. I wish my parents took me on nicer holidays. I wish my parents sent me to a more expensive school. I never hear that. Yeah. What do we hear? The youth are longing for the warmth of a family. And sometimes they look at the families of their friends, and say, like, I never had that, So there's a high cost, okay? And if you can pay the cost and pay it comfortably, good. But if it's stretching, then we have to reconsider. Yeah.
So we're open-minded on this couch, but of course, if the price is right and it offers something marvelous, then like the Coptic school is a wonderful option. And before we actually started recording, Mary, I heard you say something, so I want to ask you about it. And then maybe Alethia, you can chime in on this one as well. You were saying that the Coptic school is the way forward. So what did you mean by that? And also, if I can get you guys to maybe talk about what improvements as well can you see that, hey, I reckon we could do better in this area in the school? And by the same token, what areas do you think actually we're thriving in?
Look, I think with the advent of, I guess, the intrusion of social media in everybody's life, and the fact that you can just access just about anything now in the palm of your hands, everybody is now identifying in one way or another. And so our country is trying to be accessible to every group that has a voice, essentially. So, and schools are buying into that, like especially publicly funded schools, they're buying into that to cater for the new fad, the new fashion, the new identity, etc., etc. And unfortunately, it's not enough now for our kids to be dosed up on their Christly identity in a 2-hour mass and a 1-hour Sunday school lesson on a Sunday. That's not enough. That's not enough when 24 hours a day they have this telling them they're this and they're that and they're this and they're that. So church can't compensate for this. 24/7 they are being brainwashed by everything other than what is a godly message. So the only other alternative, in my humble opinion, is that you need to dose them up on what on pretty much the next place that they spend the most time in, and that's school. You know, that's school. You know, a lot of kids are spending more time at school these days than they are at home, to be honest. So if the next platform after the home is a school, then I need to choose a school that's going to identify with my kids in the way that I need them to identify, and that is, you are a boy or a girl who belongs to the King of Kings, that belongs to Jesus Christ, your Father in heaven. And if I'm constantly, if that's a message that they're feeding on, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, then that can come somewhere close, and then the church adds some even more. So hopefully we're on par, and with God's grace, we can overcompensate the brainwashing that they're getting 24 hours a day. So it's a partnership. It's school, it's church, it's family, and then God's all over it. And so that's what I meant when I say that's now the only option. It's the only option because, unfortunately, today, truth is relative, right?
Yeah.
So if social media is going to feed me a particular truth that the rest of my friends in whatever school that I go to identify with, I'm going to side with them. Yeah. No matter how much my parents feed me something, the louder voice in this paradigm is what I'm hearing here and what my friends are saying, because my friends are cool. But if I go to a school, St. Mary's, St. Mark's, or St. Bashoy's, where everybody is singing the same song, and the people in school are singing the same song as my parents at home, and they're singing the same song as my church, then there's your triangle. And God's all over it. So everybody's singing the same message. I'm a child of God. Jesus loves me. He saved me. And it's cool to be Christ-like. And everybody's singing the same song. And so when I do hear something, and then I go to the Coptic school and I say, hey, did you hear this? That's not normal. That's not normalized.
Yeah.
That message is not normalized. Does it mean that we don't get tempted by the message? Does it mean that we don't struggle with the message? No, not at all. These are normal teenage kids and they're struggling. They're definitely struggling.
Yeah.
But do they come to a place where their teachers, the ethos, cause, pastoral care, their fellow friends, their parents, their families, the chaplain on ground, everybody's singing a song that is different to that, and it's normal and it's okay and it's not taboo? Yeah. And so you come to a place where it's okay to eat your falafel sandwich and say, yeah, because I'm fasting. Like, that's okay. It's because when you go to the canteen Wednesday, Friday, there's vegan options because Wednesday, Friday is fasting. Because and it's okay to go to Tasbeha on a Wednesday. And when do you guys do it? Thursday? Or every other day? Like, Tasbeha is just run by the kids, during certain fasting seasons. We came out of St. Mary's fast just a couple of weeks ago, and the kids went and said to Mr. Fanus, hey, Fanus, can we go to Tasbeha? And he's like, yeah. And so they just run Tasbeha every Wednesday. Where else in the world is that normal? If it's not, but it's so normal in the Coptic school. So there's no other option. There's no other option, in my opinion, for your kids to grow up identifying as Australian Christian kids in today's world and have that foundation so that when they do leave into the big wide world, they are filled up and ready to tackle. But if I'm going to a school where I'm constantly being smacked by a whole bunch of different messages and I'm a lone wolf, I'm going to get blown away because no one else identifies like me with the same message. So I'm shut down. Yeah. So when kids come, they're comfortable because they find a place where they belong. And when you talk about Bloom's taxonomy, so as a teacher we do a whole bunch of stuff. When you talk about Bloom's taxonomy, the foundation is I need to belong. I need to feel safe. I need to be around people who I can identify with so I'm not embarrassed by my cross tattoo or my full sandwich or that I'm dressed in a certain way or like, no, because now I know that that's my okay normal and everybody shares in my normal. And my normal will become my coolness and my identity by the time I graduate, and I'll stand up for it and I won't be shaken. So it is, in my opinion, the only way forward in education in our country when the rest of the world's going mad.
I think it's like a big wake-up call there, and also like with great respect to the Catholic schools and the Anglican schools, I think that just one thing that parents need to make sure of is if you've taken comfort in that you've sent your child to a Catholic school or an Anglican school, then at least make sure they're being Catholic or Anglican. Do you know what I mean? That's what's important, because there's a lot of people now who have the title of a Christian school, but you really, as a parent, want to dig deep and say, hey, is all of this money I'm spending, is all of this effort I'm expending in working extra and all of this, is it actually towards what I think it is? So that's just like an encouragement. It's a blessing we have this at the Coptic school, and people can rest assured they send their kids there safely, spiritually. But for any of the beautiful parents who may be watching, like, we're not scolding you. We're just saying, just make sure that the school they're going to is actually teaching Christian values, because that's what the children deserve, more than anything. Ya farhati, if my son becomes a doctor, doctora, but then forgets about Christ, like, why is that my aim? That's not going to satisfy me. As we're coming near the end, maybe we'll hear from you as well, Alethia, just on the same sort of thing, and then we might wrap up with maybe some closing words and advice from Abuna, just as we near the end.
I like how Abuna Elijah mentioned beforehand, dinner table discussions. So, every year, our dad would ask us the question, where do you think you'd be without the Coptic school? And for sure, it's not where I am today. I don't think I would be I know I would not be as invested in church at all, in terms of, wanting to know more about Christ or truth, as we mentioned before, the truth about our religion and our faith. And
now you're doing a podcast on it. Yeah.
But I think as well, like Abuna mentioned about what you hear the youth saying. And my closest friend is actually not from the Coptic school. She goes to a private school. And the thing she always tells me whenever we talk about school is, I wish I had convinced my parents in some way to send me there. That's my biggest regret. And, we were convincing her for years. And we have one of my closest friends as well who goes to the Coptic school. She moved in year 11 after, some tiresome convincing. And she said she wished she moved sooner. And that's the reaction everybody gets. And it's just such a beautiful environment that you can't replicate somewhere else. It's like a perfect, microcosm of, the heavenly kingdoms. Like, we just had our last year 12 excursion to the monastery, just to take some quiet time and some time for prayer before, we return to studying for HSC. And on the bus there, there's not like some music and, games, but we were having some, Christian trivia. And, from people's answers, you learn a lot of things. Like, you learn that St. Pachomius is commemorated for, like, the Koinonia, and St. Takla had wings when he prayed, and all these things. And you, like, think to yourself, did I notice that in the commemoration? Did I know this? And that's the only way you feel, that's the only way you feel different in terms of, I need to become better in my faith. And that's what the Coptic school really instills in you. And I think this is not accurate by any means, but I like the analogy that if you go to the Coptic school, to know about Christ, it's like you're taking an elevator to him. But if you don't, it's like taking the stairs. It's much harder for you. And I think to be put in an environment, so close to the fire and dancing around it, and, again, that's where you spend more of your time. Definitely more than at church, more than with your parents. You're going to get burnt eventually. And I think, again, it's not perfect. We all struggle with the same things as everybody else does. But to be in an environment where everybody uplifts each other, to come to Kiyak Tazbaha, to do Tazbaha during recess and lunch every day, was just an initiative started for some of the boys in our grade, and it's carried on to the younger grades, and it's something it's so beautiful. And I really wish everybody could come and enjoy this with us, because it's really a taste of like Christ's love, because everybody has one goal, and it's not to be Well, it could be to be a doctor or a dentist or a vet or whatever it may be. But it's really just to know more about Christ. And, you know, again, through the program of COS, like I've learned more than I could in church or in Sunday school just because of the sheer amount of time. You know, maybe 1 year, 1 term, we focus on, you know, the councils, the ecumenical councils. You know, I just submitted today a COS assignment about marriage and what St. John Chrysostom says. And it's things that, you know, we don't have the time to cover everything here on the 1 hour on a Sunday. But we just have regular conversations about it, like all the time. We have reading clubs on Thursday during Great Lent, like early morning masses at school. You know, where are you going to sit a trial exam staring at an iconstasis? Never. It's just such a great feeling and such a great environment. And it's something that we're not going to lose when we graduate, but it's something that's going to bring us closer and hopefully bring those who went to private schools as well closer to us, and Catholic schools, and, you know, everything, and just share what we've learned throughout the years, because it's really precious time from year 7 to 12 and even kindergarten. You learn a lot from each other, from the teachers, and from the school itself.
Yeah. You know, what I'm hearing again and again is this truth that, like, there's no other environment that can compensate for the lack of spiritual teaching other than a school, because that is where most time is spent while awake during the week, or at least, you know, when you're working and studying and all of that. It's a school. That's where you're going to get all this time, and that's what we need to be thinking about. Like, is there any other environment that can compensate for this lack of, you know, spiritual edification, spiritual knowledge, spiritual love, other than a school? And so if it is a school, then we need to do it prayerfully, thoughtfully, like Abuna was mentioning. This has been really enjoyable. But as we come to a close, I might just ask Father Elijah for any final thoughts. So no particular question, Father, but just any final thoughts that you might want to share for anyone who is watching, maybe something for them to consider.
I have one final thought, Abuna, which is if anybody has any doubts about the Coptic school, the doubts should finish listening to this young lady. So thank you for organising this, and you really made me feel more confident about my decision to send my own children there, and just pray for us.
Well, it's been great with another episode of Dardasha. Nice chit-chatting to you all. And I promise we don't get commission if anyone goes to the Coptic school. There's nothing in it for us. It's simply just a nice chat, and we hope that it's beneficial for anyone who may be watching, and may the Holy Spirit guide us on our journeys, wherever that may be.